Tactical, yet practical. Vicious, but honest. Is there anything else quite like the Cold Steel Recon 1? Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and welcome to this episode of Beat the Icon, where we are taking a look at the Cold Steel Recon 1. And whether you're professional, law enforcement, military, or just anyone who wants a big, overbuilt feeling knife that still manages to be easy to carry and slices well, then the Recon 1 is a great option for you. This is a true blue-collar workhorse. There is pure working intentions with this knife. It's not trendy, it's not pocket jewelry, not fashionable, it's just made to work. This is a knife that's been around for a while, looks a little bit different from the original version, but it is a bona fide icon at this point. 3 blade shapes to choose from. There is a clip point, a tanto here in the middle, and the drop point option. All of them pretty darn good. Kind of suit what fits your perceived needs the best. Now, a big part of the appeal of the Recon 1, like many Cold Steel models, is the Triad Lock here. Designed by Andrew Demko, it looks like your garden variety lockback. You've seen these on Buck 110s here for decades at this point. But there's more to it than just another lockback. Inside, or under the hood, as we like to say, there have been improvements. There's a stop pin, there's altered geometries, the net effect of which means this is even more long-lasting than an old school lockback. It's stronger, it resists forces in more different directions than standard lockback, and it is self-adjusting over time as things kind of wear in. I've seen decades-old Buck 110s that have unavoidable blade wiggle because the lock has just lived a good hard life. The Triad Lock is going to stay sturdy even longer. The knife is also easy to carry. G10 handles here sits nice and flat so that it doesn't take up a ton of outward bulk in your pocket. Width-wise, it does take up a little bit more space, I will grant you, but still not overly heavy for its weight. You've got a couple different handle positions as well. The standard handhold here tilts the blade down a little bit so it points forward a little more naturally when you're thrusting. And there's a space to choke up as well for getting finer detail work done. Let's talk about value too, because there's a lot of high performance knives on the market, but few of them can reach the sort of excellent cross-section of high value and high performance like the Recon 1. There is a Magna Cut steel version as well that's sitting at the high end of the price range, but this S35 VN version, which is what all these standard blade shapes are available in right now, is the one we're going to focus on today because it's about $127. Made in Taiwan, you've got a 4-inch blade of S35 VN steel. Magna Cut is great, but is it worth more than double the price? That's up to you. But there's a reason the S35 VN version at this price is such a hard knife to beat. Let's see if any of these knives I have on the table actually stand a chance against it. Why don't we? So in a way, the biggest competition to the Recon 1 in my mind actually comes from Cold Steel itself, and that is with their Voyager series. All the things I just said about the Recon 1, I could say about the Voyager, and just sits at a slightly lower tier, both price-wise and materials-wise, but it's still quite a bargain for what you're getting. This is about $60 right here, so half the price of the Recon 1 in this case, and we're dealing with an AUS 10 stainless steel. It's not a powder metal like the S35 VN, but it's still way outperforms its price point, which is really nice. Part of that, getting it to that price, we've got an injection molded handle here rather than the G10, but it's a little bit thicker and, to some people, it might even be a little bit more comfortable. Like the Recon 1, it also kind of pulls off the same handle trick. You've got the downward pointed blade in the standard position and the choke up spot for finer work. You've also got all 3 blade shapes. I've got the drop point version right here, but you've got clip point and tanto available. And I mean, let me just show you how much they stack up next to each other. Actually, slightly maybe slightly better slicing geometry on this drop point versus the Recon 1 in this case. But half price Recon 1 is kind of how I think of the Voyager nowadays. But when we get beyond the cold steel lineup, I'm kind of going to organize things, the competition here, by lock type, because that Triad Lock is such a big part, like I said, of the charm. Closest cousin is, of course, the lockback, but there's not really a lot of tactical lockbacks on the market anymore. You know, we looked at the Buck 110. In fact, there's a whole field of things here that we didn't feel quite made the grade for the table today. The Buck 110 is a bit too small for to be a true Recon 1 competitor. Closest I could find in the lockback department is this, the Victorinox Swiss Army Evoke. It's $120. You've got aluminum handles here, feels even sturdier than the G10 of the Recon 1. I'll hold the closest blade shape up here next to it so you can compare. About the same blade length. However, you're definitely not getting the same kind of bargain equation when it comes to the steel. S35VN on the cold steel and basic, Swiss Army knife steel. I forget the grade actually here, but it is pretty entry-level stuff. It does maintain some of the toughness that the Recon 1 brings to the table, though. Even though the blade steel is thinner, you've got a fairly robust grind on it, so that should help it stand up. Just don't expect the same levels of edge retention that you get with the Recon 1. Next up, this one is an interesting price point comparison. The Spyderco Resilience, specifically the S35VN versions. 4.2-inch blade, and it's about $130 and some change. So just, about not even $5 more than the standard Recon 1. And you get more sharpened edge on that S35VN blade. More efficient slicing geometry as well. Still fairly robust, but I would give more robustness to the Recon 1's geometry in this case, at least when we're comparing drop point to drop point here. The Spyderco is a more efficient design. Rather than multiple handholds, you just have a longer handle. You could choke back if you want, or you could get right up there next to the edge. Less of a finger guard for like tactical uses where, the Victorinox and the cold steel options here definitely have that going for them. Injection molded handles here, so not as premium as the G10. Not that G10's a premium material, but you get more traction on this thanks to the bidirectional texturing that the Resilience has on board. And although, this version right here is technically a little bit more expensive than the Recon 1, this also lets me kind of backdoor into a budget alternative. The 8CR steel versions, which is, a fairly basic stainless steel. I'd say it's a step up from the Victorinox steel, however. Those start at about $70. I think 70, let me see here, 72 for the injection molded versions, 77 for a G10 version. Does it get you in the same sort of ballpark? This is where I'm going to need to rely on you commenters, you folks who love the comment section. Let me know down below. Is this a worthy competitor or not? In fact, you can let me know in all of these cases. But before you do, let me talk about the liner lock on this Resilience. Liner lock is certainly a sturdy lock, but it does not have the same sort of reputation for strength and longevity that the Triad Lock comes with. How do we get around that? Well, there are a couple extra options here, improved liner locks that might make a good alternative. This is the Viper Safe, an Italian-made knife with M390 steel, 3 3/4 of an inch long. Here it is, technically that's a Tanto, so I'll hold the Tanto version up. Here it is next to the Recon 1. It is a little bit smaller, I will grant you. The actual sharpened edge, however, is not that far off. It just has a more tidy or space-efficient handle in this case. So steel, you've got an upgrade in terms of edge retention. Toughness, the S35 is tougher, but you still have a pretty robust grind on this particular blade. Micarta or wood handle options are available. The wood options start at around $168. So yeah, it's a little bit more expensive. Fills the hand quite nicely, does a lot of what the Recon 1 does. Doesn't feel quite as sort of like combat focused, but it would still work. And you have their safe liner lock. It's not just a liner lock, you've got this, jimping essentially right here on the front of the liner lock. And that's essentially a spring-loaded pin that drives forward and keeps the liner lock from being pushed out of the way until you pull down on the jimping. It may sound a little cumbersome, but in practice, it's very easy to use once you know what is going on, as you can see right there. And you get extra safety, extra durability out of your liner lock. So what do you think? Recon 1 competitor? Another option here was sort of an improved liner lock, the M16 series from CRKT. Some of these versions are more affordable than this. I think they start around the $50 to $60 point for the 4-inch Tanto bladed versions. This one right here comes in about $85, and it has the auto locks system. That's LAWKS. That's the Lake and Walker something. I forget what it stands for. We'll get Thomas, our editor, to put it up there so you know as well. Essentially, what that is, it's another secondary safety on the liner lock itself. Flip the blade open, and this tab is spring-loaded forward. And that's another thing that is going to keep the liner lock from being disengaged until you are ready to disengage it. It is a little more cumbersome to use one-handed than the Viper Safe. As you can see, I need like an extra finger in there. So, keep that in mind. It's going to be a practiced motion. But we've got, big blade, big classic tactical design here as well. AUS 8 steel on this version. So again, not quite the performance levels in terms of edge retention as the S35 VN on the cold steel, but the price on this, again, is like $85 right now. Could be a pretty decent budget option for some of you folks out there. That actually brings me to another option in the M16 lineup, and that's the version using their deadbolt locks. And like the Triad Lock, the deadbolt sits near the top of the mountain in terms of strength and durability in locking devices. Now you're going to pay more for it than the cold steel. We're about $145 right here, and you're getting D2 tool steel rather than the powder metallurgy S35. But you've got a very sturdy feeling handle. It's aluminum. Actually, both of these M16s were aluminum. The lock itself functions by pressing on the pivot. And then the deadbolt latch on the back has 2 pins that run through the tang of the blade, and it is incredibly strong. This is also an assisted opening knife, so if you like a faster action than you will get with a traditional opening method, especially one with a lockback, either one of these M16s gives you that. Actually, the Viper gives you that flipping action as well. So you've definitely got a little more speed at your disposal with any of these designs. So the deadbolt lacks any secondary safety like the auto locks, but let's look at some other knives with some secondary locking mechanisms, a locks on locks sort of thing. This is the Hogue EX01, a 4-inch bladed folder sitting at about $198. And that's the price you're going to pay to get into a US made alternative to the imported Recon series. You're not going to get the same levels of blade steel performance here either. 154 cm is the material, but you can get it in a drop point or a Tanto. But I've got the drop point in front of me here, so let's hold it up next to the drop point Recon 1. Blade length, spot on similar. Sharpened length, just about the same, maybe a slight edge to the Recon 1 in this case. The handles feel more sturdy, however. Again, nothing feels flimsy about the G10 on the Recon 1, but the nice matte finished aluminum here just has a very different feel to it. We have a plunge style button lock right there, all manual action with the thumb studs, and we have that secondary safety. So if you're really getting down, working hard, monkeying around with the knife, and you're worried about the possibility of accidentally disengaging that button lock, that extra switch there is going to get the job done for you. Tip down carry with this Hogue, which is actually the M16 has tip down carry, and the Spyderco has tip down carry as an option, but everything else is tip up. Some would say that is a better option for a tactical knife because it's, as you're drawing from the pocket, you have to sort of adjust your grip less than if you were pulling it out and having to flip around with a tip-up carry. Let me know in the comments which carry method you prefer. All right, we're going to move on to frame locks next. Frame locks are certainly very durable as well, but we couldn't really find anything that felt, super Recon 1-like. Maybe the closest, I'll throw it up here real quick, the Concept Bison actually has a very similar dimensionality to the clip point blade of the Recon 1 right there, but you can check out the link in the description for more info on that. It just felt a little too flash in a way. And also, I wanted to talk about this a little more. That is the Carson Huang designed Evolution Ironclad from Real Steel Knives. This is probably the budgetiest alternative I can think of, apart from the Voyager series, to the Recon 1. There's two blade shapes, Tonto, or we'll call that a modified clip point, both in D2 tool steel and coming in at about $64 right now. Let me hold up the Tonto, because I've got the same coloration going on each. As you can see, it's a little bit smaller, and the actual sharpened length on the edge is smaller still, even though outright tip to handle length is about the same. And that's mostly because of this large, say, finger choil right here, which gives you a little bit of what the Recon offers in terms of a standard handle position and a choke-up point. Just on this smaller frame, that's going to come at the expense of the edge itself. We do have a frame lock as mentioned, but you have this signature element right here, this sort of twisting around itself feature, which is mostly design specific, but that does provide a little bit of extra stability, at least in this direction when you're using the frame lock. And it is also a button actuated frame lock with a secondary safety. So you've got a very sturdy lock that only gets stronger the harder you grip it, and extra lock to get the job done. And thanks to the button, I didn't mention this on the Hogue, you've got a finger safe closing action as well, which could come in quite handy. It's also going to carry nice and easily, just like the Recon 1, in terms of it being flat, but also being sort of wide in the pocket. Let me show you the pocket clip sides on each of those. I don't know, similar vibes. Not straight one-for-one competitor in terms of everything else, but vibes are similar, and the budget is certainly on point. All right, let's move on to crossbar locks. It's certainly a very sturdy locking mechanism with this locking bar, this crossbar running across the tang of the blade. I will say, however, I think the reliability long-term of the Triad Lock is probably going to win out. It's sort of a less fragile mechanism. Not that the crossbar lock can't be sturdy, but I think head-to-head, I would have to give it to the Triad Lock. But let's start with this right here. This is the SOG Trident AT. It has a crossbar locking mechanism. It is an assisted opener as well, and it has a secondary safety. It doesn't work in the blade open position. It works in the blade closed position. So it's going to keep it from accidentally opening. That could be an advantage depending upon your situation. None of these other knives have that option going on. The Trident also offers this cutout in the handle itself to use the edge of the knife as a strap cutter. That could come in handy. And this is also available in a Tonto or clip point blade. This is the Tonto right here. D2 steel, but the price is under $100, just barely under $100. So for about $25 more, what is it, 26, 27? About $27 more, you can get the S35 VN and a bigger knife. However, the edge itself, just about the same between both of them, despite it being a longer tip to handle design. The actual sharpened edge is very, very, very close. It feels good in the hand as well. A little bit of a choke up spot, but you've got at least that finger guard protection. Oh, and another hidden feature here, glass breaker at the front. Some other possible crossbar locks you might cross shop. The Benchmade Presidio II. We're getting back into some US made options now. It is going to come with a price premium over the imported Recon series, $250 for this version. And it's a little bit smaller than the drop point on the Recon series. You're also getting S30V as opposed to S35VN. Performance is going to be similar, but toughness is a little bit higher up on the S35. So think about what you're going to want to use your knife for. Although, like I said, you can't really go wrong with either of them. Like the Recon, the Presidio series is big, but can handle a little more agilely when you need to do the smaller stuff. It does feel about a half size smaller than the Recon, however, even with the very accommodating handle. The action's always been very good. And speaking of the handle, CF Elite is the material here. It is carbon fiber reinforced nylon, helps keep the weight down while still maintaining a lot of strength. And you've got a lot of strength from those full length liners as well. What do you think? Is this a Recon 1 competitor? Let me know on this and all the other knives down below. Can it be a Recon 1 competitor when it's, almost double the price? Did my math right? Yeah, that's right. The same could be said for this knife right here. This is the ZT203. Vibes-wise, it does a lot of what the Recon 1 does in terms of its description, but the value quotient is not the same. It's US made. You do get M4 steel, a powder metallurgy tool steel here in that 4-inch blade, but the price is about $304. Here it is next to the Recon 1, sharpened edge, right about the same. Handle, very, very comfortable. Single position in this case, but you do get that finger guard right there, and you get the crossbar lock, a very smooth crossbar lock, I should say. I'm leaving it up to you. Let me know. Is $304 too much to be a true Recon 1 competitor, or is that just what you got to do if you want a US-made option there? And last but not least, Spyderco. There's a handful of things that feel like they were getting close to what the Recon could offer. The Resilience was certainly a cool one because of the way the materials lined up, but gotta go with the Manix 2 XL, even over something like the Military 2, which we were thinking about for a minute. And also, part of the reason for that is the compression lock. Like the deadbolt, like the Triad Lock, it's sitting right up there near the top of the very strong, very reliablest mechanisms on the market. But the Manix 2, this just feels more like a Recon 1 competitor. Manix 2 XL specifically. Price on these sits at $205 and some change, and it is US made as well. This one has a Spy 27 blade, which is Spyderco's proprietary steel that has pretty good levels of toughness. S30V is also available if you want to go with a more conventional handle color than the cobalt blue right here. You operate this like a crossbar lock, but instead of a crossbar with Omega springs, you've got a coil spring pushing a ceramic ball bearing into the tang of the blade. Again, a very reliable and strong locking mechanism. Like the Recon 1, you've also got kind of two main handle positions. You've got the standard hold, which points the blade down a little bit, and you've got the choke up spot with Spyderco's signature guarded finger choil right there for the finer work. This also feels geometry-wise, even though the blade stock is thinner than something like the Military, the overall geometry as you get towards the tip feels a little more durable, and that, again, makes it compare more favorably, I think, to the levels of performance you get from the Recon. Slicing geometry, however, it's got a higher grind, so it should be a little more efficient, and it's just another option. Is it a competitor? That's where I got to leave it to you in some ways. But also, I'm kind of going to stake out my own position. A lot of times in these Beat the Icon videos, I leave it all up to you to tell me whether any of these things truly do beat the Icon. But you can see the knives on the table in front of me. You can see the knives on the table behind me. We tried real hard to find the best options, the best alternatives to the Recon 1. But in terms of the S35VN models here, the level of value they offer, nothing really does what the Recon 1 does for the price that the Recon 1 does it at. At least that's my take. There's a reason this is the Icon, and I don't think anything's really going to dethrone it anytime soon. But I could be wrong, and that's where You're going to have to tell me if I am wrong in the comments. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description. That'll take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program where you can get some free money, or our Apple Pay or Sezzle options at checkout if you want to buy now, pay later. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off for now. See you next time.